Today I have with me on the show Tadeo Luque. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. I've been tripping over those vowels, too many vowels for me. But this is going to be a real treat for you. Tadeo lives in Maui presently, but he's originally from Argentina, and he's going to be sharing a bit of his story. It's very unique. He had quite a battle with anxiety that occurred during the pandemic and really affected his fitness journey. Tadeo trains clients out of Maui. He has his own business where he works with clients one on one and is also working with clients over the internet as far as his online business goes. And I'm going to let him describe a little bit more about what he's doing and how he's working with his clients. Tadeo, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for the lovely introduction, Carol. It's really a blessing to be here and to be able to have this conversation with you.
I've been excited to talk with you because I think this is a subject that doesn't get discussed enough. How we, as fitness trainers, as fitness professionals, nutritionists, personal trainers, whatever our field is in health and wellness, how we can encounter our own struggles. And I do think anxiety, depression, stress, we are not immune to those things. So, can you describe a bit of, first of all, how did you get into fitness? And then, second of all, what caused this battle with anxiety and how did you transform and move yourself out of it?
Excellent. Um, well, I started I would say my first steps into fitness through strength training happened when I was 13 years old, just being a really insecure young boy looking to hold on to something that would make me feel better about myself. And I started training, but I never fully commit to it. It was just something very sporadical. Um, but I always wanted to do it to have some kind of um, immediate gratification, trying to see myself in the best shape as possible, because that way I thought I would be more accepted by others. I think that's what caught my attention into training and fitness overall at first. Then at the age of 15, I started playing a bit of competitive rugby, and I did that for over 10 years, and I loved it. I loved the sport. It was just, I would say, it's one of those places where I could zone out from my life situation and my own struggles and just focus on what was going on there in the present moment. And it became really fulfilling for me to have that space where I could step away from my own thoughts, in a way, from my own stress and anxiety. And through training, I realized that I wanted to explore more the idea of training myself and training others, not only for fitness, or I would say more related towards performance, physical performance, because I wanted to be a better athlete. I wanted to perform better in my sport, which was rugby. So I started training, and that's why I decided to get into a bachelor's degree in sports science, which I did in Argentina. And one thing ended up leading to the other, and I just fell in love with training, mainly because I felt so good while I was doing it, and it gave me such a sense of confidence, of security, and my body started to change, and I started to feel better about myself. But not only that, I felt like whenever I was training, whenever I was moving my body, my stress, my anxiety would go down immensely. Afterwards, after training, I would feel amazing. During training, I would feel amazing. And then, of course, throughout the days, that would build back up, but then I would train again, and it would really help me cope in a healthy way with my stress and anxiety. After that, I opened up my own gym in Argentina. I had it for 5 years, and I started training hundreds of clients throughout those 5 years, in personal training and in group training. Um, Mainly, I work with athletes, some professional athletes in boxing and in soccer. But I would say that my main focus was always quality of life and helping people get in shape and feel good about their relationship with their bodies. And that's what I've been developing throughout the years.
Oh, that's awesome. I know we all have our story of how we got into health and fitness, and sometimes it is through our own transformation. I know mine started with, I was just more concerned with how I look, the aesthetics. And then from there, I realized the benefits like you did of stress reduction, less anxiety, because I definitely struggled with those things in the past, and it's helped me immensely. Now, during lockdown, were you in Argentina? Is that correct?
Yes, I was in Argentina during lockdown. It was actually it was a very particular story because my business was doing really well. My personal training business. I had my studio in Argentina in the city of Buenos Aires, and I decided to go all in into it. I grabbed all of my savings and I rented a bigger place and I doubled on the equipment and I moved myself to an apartment in the city of Buenos Aires, just a couple blocks away from the studio. And 3 weeks after that, pandemic occurred, and I found myself locked down in an apartment in the middle of the city, not being able to pay my bills because I couldn't work because the gym was closed, and uh, and I had no savings because I had invested all of my money in the gym, all of my money into moving myself into this new apartment. So it was a very stressful period. I mean, I had my whole life. I have always dealt with stress and anxiety since ever since I was a little kid. I did have some stressful situations growing up, but I don't think it's just that. But the way I would relate to what would happen to me and how would I was an expert at overthinking and recreating events in my mind over and over again and generating that anxiety and that stress. So when the pandemic occurred, it was the most unpredictable, fearful moment of my life in which the stress and anxiety was so much that it was very hard for me to handle, especially being by myself in an apartment in the middle of the city. And it was definitely a harsh moment for sure.
How long were you in lockdown? Was it similar to here in the States? Because I know here in New Mexico, it was, we would come out and then they'd say, no, we got to go back in lockdown. And this was going on for over a year.
Well, we had a bit of back and forward during our lockdown, and I think Argentina has had the longest lockdown in the whole world,
Oh,
if I'm not wrong.
goodness.
And but I would say the worst part was the first 4 months, 4 or 5 months, which were very strict. So I couldn't leave my house at all just to go to buy groceries or if for a medical emergency or something like that, and that was it. And so I would say time by myself on lockdown in the apartment without having connection with anybody of my family and friends was 4 months in a row, which was
Wow.
something so unusual. I had never experienced anything like that in my life. Being away from my family and friends, which I thankfully I had and I still have a pretty close bond to them. And over there, we're very big on social gatherings and relationships. So that was very hard. Finding myself alone under those conditions, feeling completely uh, overwhelmed by the situation.
Hmm. That must have been really, really tough. I know we had probably here in New Mexico a good 3 months. We could go and we could shop, not shop at the mall, but we could get our groceries. Essential businesses were open, go to some doctors we could go. But yeah, we were stuck at home for a good amount of time. And I think for those of us, like I'm an introvert naturally. So for those of us that are introverts, it was very hard because it just made us more introverted. It took away that outlet. And I remember going back for the first time to the gym and having anxiety attacks, being not because I was afraid of getting sick, but because I hadn't been around people. Can
Yeah.
you speak into a little bit about how did this affect you physically? Because it changed some of your habits to have this anxiety and the stress and the depression. How did it change your habits and then affect your body, affect you physically?
Yes, definitely affected my my physical health and my mental health because at first nobody know how long this was gonna last. So everybody
Right.
thought, oh well, we'll just take a couple of weeks off our regular lifestyle, and you start by having Zoom conversations with your friends and having a beer or two, and then that gets extended over the days, and I just couldn't cope with it. I didn't want it to exercise. I didn't want it to read, to study. I just felt like I wanted to numb myself. I didn't want it to feel like that anymore. And that's when I started. So I started drinking every day. I was smoking tobacco every day because I felt that that was helping me out, giving me a coping mechanism. I was using social media nonstop, watching TV series, just trying to disconnect myself from my own feelings, from what was going on inside of me, and trying to cover that up over and over as the days went by. And I spent the first 2 months, I spent them like that, just trying to cover as much as I could. And I started eating very unhealthy food, eating takeout the whole time, yeah, getting food delivered at home the whole time, drinking, smoking a lot of weed at the moment, just trying to disconnect myself from everything that was going on, until just it became unbearable. It really became unbearable. I found myself in a position in which I didn't want to leave my bed. I didn't want it to do. I managed to maintain some of my clients through online, um, but it was I was doing just enough to survive, just enough to pay some of my bills, accumulating a lot of debt because I didn't have the energy. I couldn't have the energy because I was depressed. I did not want to leave my bed. It was very very hard, and I got to the point where I was actually asking myself, do I really want to keep on living this way? Is this the life that I want for me? It was just unbearable pain over and over again. And thankfully, one day I woke up, and I remember this day very clear, and I started asking myself, and I started asking the same question, but with a different connotation. I started asking myself, do I really want to live my life like this? And that question turned into something else, and it was, what do I have to do to start feeling different? What can I do? What change can I generate? I don't want to do this no more. I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to have this stress and anxiety nonstop just eating me up from the inside, which I'm sure a lot of other people started to feel, and a lot of other people, I'm also sure that they did not make it out of the pandemic. So I'm very thankful that I made it through that situation. And that's when one of my clients, one of my online clients, suggested that I should start doing a meditation challenge, a 21-day guided meditation challenge. And I said to myself, you know what? Why not? I've never done this before. Might as well invest on it. And that's when I started doing meditation every day. And at first, it was very uncomfortable, like sitting down,
Mm,
staying still,
it
just
is.
trying to focus on my breath, repeating a mantra over and over again. And the first 3 4 days I was like, what am I doing? Am I wasting my time? But for some reason I said to myself, there must be a reason why it's made of 21 days. Yeah, at least I'm gonna finish it. And something incredible happened. After the first week, I started to feel a lot better. I started to feel a lot better. The anxiety and the stress all of a sudden weren't as crippling as before. I had more energy. My sleep was better. And one thing led to another. And after the 21 days of meditating every day, not super long meditations, these were like 5 to 10 minute meditations every single day. But it just made me reduce so much my stress and anxiety that I felt encouraged to take the next step. So, okay, this feels great. I don't want to stop. I'm going to keep on doing the meditations. What can I add to this? And that is when I picked up my training again, and I started eating healthier, and I started to go to bed early, and I tried to remove myself from social media, stop drinking, stop smoking, and one little step after the other. It was like that same question would happen, and it still arises in my head until today, which is, what can I do today to be a bit better than I was yesterday? What can I do to really take care of myself? And there was a compound interest effect on all of these little actions that I was taking every day, and it changed my quality of life. I felt even before than I had been feeling during before the pandemic, because I had no anxiety. My stress had diminished immensely, and all of a sudden my body was responding different. I
Mhm.
felt healthier, I felt stronger, I felt like my sleep was deeper. uh, I used to have, every once in a while, I get so stressed and anxious that I even had digestive problems, and those disappeared completely. And that quality of life improved so much, just through caring of myself, through taking that personal responsibility, that I realized how fulfilling it would be to help others do the same, take that same action, learn how to take care of themselves, not only physically but mentally, because in my opinion they go hand in hand. Uh, you cannot work on one without working on the other. They're
Oh,
both same.
I
Sorry,
agree.
they're different faces of a same coin.
Hmm.
They're the same. They're intertwined, and that's why I'm here.
I agree. You know what I love? A couple of things stood out to me is you were able to ease the anxiety and depression without medication. And I'm not anti-medication. I realize there's instances where people need it, but I think it's wonderful when somebody can use a practice like meditation to bring themselves out of anxiety and control those feelings that, of course, it's going to pop back up. And so you have this tool now, and then the other thing I loved is it's so simple. Like you didn't start with, okay, I'm going to go on this big nutrition plan and I'm going to do an hour of yoga and meditate and go outside and run and all of the things. You started with one simple step, which was to commit to that meditation. So I really I love that. I think that's really valuable. Most of my listeners are women and women over 50, and what happens with them is, it will happens to all of us, is we begin to have a problem with cortisol. We get more sensitive to stress. Do you want to speak into a little bit about what stress does to our bodies, from that physiological sense?
Yes, for sure. So basically, after diminishing my own stress, I started getting into the science of it, trying to understand stress a bit more. And what I've realized after reading and learning, which it's, I'll be honest with you, it's a very complicated subject. There's
It
the
is.
biochemistry behind all of it is sometimes can be a bit overwhelming, and I am uh, only scratching the surface of what it really is. But what I've learned about stress is that basically, from a scientific standpoint, stress is everything that takes us away from our homeostatic balance. So, homeostatic balance means that, let's say that there's an ideal parameter in which all of the different values in our body should be, like our body temperature or our blood pressure. And whenever we're removed from that ideal parameter, we're being stressed, and our body works to bring us back into that homeostatic balance. Now, what happens is there are big, there are a good amount of different stressors to which we have the same response, which is called the stress response or the fight or flight response.
Hmm.
So what happens is, whenever we are stressed or whenever we perceive stress, which that is a key word, I think, which is the perception of stress, uh, our body has an alarm center, which is our amygdala, which begins a whole hormonal cascade that releases different hormones. In this case, it's CRH, which is corticotropin releasing hormone. And then what it does is releases another hormone that activates our adrenal glands into releasing cortisol, and on a more short term, adrenaline and noradrenaline. So what this generates is it prepares our bodies for action. That's why the term is fight or flight. It prepares our bodies for fighting or for escaping the situation. It's kind of a survival instinct that's ingrained in our physiology. So what happens is whenever we are turning on this stress response, and our body is preparing for that action of fighting or running, it basically prepares us for a big intense movement. So what we need to do in those cases, what the body does, it's it diverts the blood flow from organs that are not so necessary in the moment, and it diverts it into our muscles because we need to take action. So we need the muscle flow going straight to our muscles, and it dilates our airways so we can have a better oxygenation throughout our body, and it releases glucose into our blood flow so we can have available energy to use at the moment, and increases our heart rate, among other things. These are just some of the basic reactions. So what happens is our body goes into a state in which we need to take action, we need to survive. So if I need to survive in this moment through this physical action, I'm gonna turn off all the long-term processes in my body. For example, my digestion. If I need to run away, I need to turn this off. I'm not. I don't want to spend energy there. I need to focus on what's going on in the moment. The same with our immunological system. I'm not going to worry about long term processes like protecting myself from diseases if I need to use my muscles and my energy to take action at the moment. So it's actually, the system is extremely efficient at protecting us on the short term. The, the problem appears whenever we are chronically stressed. And the thing about chronic stress and stress overall is that human beings are smart enough to not only turn on the stress response whenever there's an actual stressor, when there's something going on, but we're so smart that we can anticipate a stressor. And our body doesn't know the difference between that anticipation and what's actually happening here and now. So you would have a similar stress response as if you were running away from a lion, or as if you were fighting with your partner, or having a difficult moment with your boss at your job, or you're having more of a social struggle, which are the ones that we encounter in our day-to-day life. And what happens with that is we can anticipate that. That means that even before something stressful happens, we can get stressed. And once something stressful happens, we can carry on that stress response just by thinking about that same event over and over again. And on the short term, sure, it's very useful to send that signal and to have all that energy available to move, to take action. But if you're constantly sending that signal and diverting your blood flow into your cardiovascular system and opening your airways and increasing your heart rate and shutting down your immunological system or your digestion, it's a mess. It's a mess. And if you have some sort of medical condition on top of that, it can be very dangerous. It can be extremely dangerous.
You did a beautiful job of explaining that cascade. It is kind of
Thank you.
like dominoes. One thing happens, causing another and another and another. And you're right. If we're getting ready to take this massive action or run or fight, all of the other processes in our body are going to be on hold. The digestion, that blood glucose, that blood sugar is going to flood to give us the, flood through our bloodstream to give us the energy. And like you said, it's a beautiful system, but it's meant to be, okay, the threat's passed, and now these physiological responses go down. But what I see, and I know you see it too in our modern society, especially here in the States, is people are up at this high level all of the time. And now, when you're working with your clients, how are you incorporating? Because I know you're personal training them, so you're teaching them exercise physiology and fundamentals, maybe talking to them about their nutrition. How are you working with them on stress? What techniques are you teaching them to do?
So a couple of years ago, I started incorporating stress management approach. integrating it with the physical activity that I provide for them. So what I found to be very useful, which uh, after some time of doing my meditation practice, I realized that was the most helpful thing is being grounded into the present moment. That means trying to avoid that overthinking pattern, which is extremely challenging because we are born in a society that is constantly overthinking things and generating that anxiety and stress that turns on the stress response. So there are three things that I found to have the most value whenever I'm working with people. The first one I would say is how we approach physical activity. And that is, are you just going through the motions of training or are you actually focused on what you're doing? Because the best tool that I've found to keep us grounded into the present moment is our body. Because our body cannot travel into the past or into the future, only our mind does. So, whenever we are focusing in our body, focusing our attention in, okay, how am I feeling today? How are my muscles today? Moving, working out, what muscles should I be engaging during this exercise? So whenever we have a more mindful approach on exercise, it really allows people to remain present. It really allows them to focus on that moment, and that immediately reduces that mental stress, that overthinking pattern. So I think being mindful about your training and focus on the muscles, on the right exercises, on the right muscles, on the right exercises, that is key. That I found that to be extremely helpful because it creates um, this bubble of presence that protects us from the anxiety and stress of the outside world. That being said, not only that, but also exercise has a long-term benefit, which is, like we said, whenever we are stressed mentally and we generate that whole physiological response, our body is expecting to have a physical reaction. So whenever we do have that physical reaction, for example, when we go and have exercise, when we do exercise, when we train, what happens is we send a signal to our body, to our mind, the danger is done, is gone. Now you can turn on what's called your parasympathetic nervous system, and you can turn on that recovery process. You can turn on your digestion. You can turn on your immunological system again. So stress no, exercise doesn't only help on the short term, but on the long term, it allows you to reduce that stress response and get into that recovery process. So exercise by far is for me, it's been the best. Second, meditation. And it's a bit complicated sometimes to talk about meditation because there's so many definitions out there regarding meditation, and people get sometimes a bit scared of the term meditation because, for example, some people say meditation, there's different definitions. Some of the definitions refer to meditation as putting your mind in blank, like stopping completely all the thought process. And I see that as a very advanced way of meditating. It's very advanced. I cannot stop my thought process. It's very hard. Some people say that meditation is basically analyzing your own thoughts, going over your own thoughts. So we have two opposites. One of them that says that you shouldn't be thinking, and one of the definitions of meditation says no, you should be focusing on analyzing those thoughts one by one. So the one that I found to be more aligned with me is one by Edgar Tolle, who is a spiritual master who wrote the book The Power of Now, and it really helped me out through those stressful times that I spent during the pandemic. And he says that meditation is not something that you do, but is to be in full alignment with life in the moment. So what I've learned about that and my own studies is that if you're able to put your attention on something that's going on here and now, you remove that overthinking. Not completely, it's always going to come back, but that's going to be the exercise. For example, one of the easiest ways to do a meditation for me is just following my breath, just sitting down, closing my eyes. And I say closing my eyes because if I keep my eyes open, there's too much stimulus. It's too distracting for me. So I close my eyes and I focus on my breath. And I focus on the pattern of my breath. And what's happening is I'm focusing on the feeling, on the sensation of my breath, and my attention goes away. Immediately, I start thinking about the things that are going to happen, or the things that I have to do throughout my day, or things that already happen. And what I do, the exercise is okay, bring it back to your breath. A couple of seconds later, boom, I'm gone again. And it's that exercise. It's like a game. That's the way I say it. It's like a game of bringing your attention over and over into your breath. And what happens after that is you get better at it. Like everything that you give a certain practice, you get better at it. So you're better at controlling and moving your attention. And if you do that, if you get better, you can focus on putting your attention on what's going on here and now. And when we're focused on the present moment, we don't give space to worry, to stress, to anxiety about things that are going to happen either in the past or things that happens in the future. So that's meditation, the easiest way to do it through your breath. I would say that's the second one. And the third one, and I got into this only about a year and a half ago, but it has really been game changing for me, which is journaling. Writing down everything that I feel, everything that goes through my mind, just writing it down, and try to do it in a very instinctive way. Not overthinking it. Just putting my pen on the paper and just start scribbling, and whatever comes out comes out. And sometimes those are emotions. Sometimes those are hard times that I'm going through, or things that I need to plan. And what happens is, whenever I write down whatever is going on inside of me, I can see it from a very objective perspective. So sometimes, for example, I write my fears. What am I afraid of? Which is something that can be very stressful, the things that we are afraid of. And I write them down and I look at them in a more objective way, and I realize, okay, maybe this is not so bad. Maybe what's going on is not so bad. It's like we make things bigger than they are in our own head, but when you write it down and you bring it down and you look at them, you realize, you know what? A lot of people are going through a lot worse things than what you're going through. So focus on being grateful and manage. So writing down in my journal through a sense of gratitude has been incredible for me, a game changer, and I do it every single day.
Gratitude is huge. And I'm a big fan of journaling because it does allow you to get objective with your thoughts. Because I think we have these limiting self beliefs, little stories that loop over and over and over again in our heads. And aha moments for me have come when I'm journaling and I look at it and I go, is that really true what I'm saying about myself? And I'll realize, no, it's not even based in truth. It's just some anxious thought, worrisome thought looping around in my head. And I think right now we're really bombarded with so much. I mean, if you turn on the news, it's too much. You're on social media, that's a whole other thing. And so
Yeah.
we've got the normal stressors. So people are, they're raising a family, they've got their kids, their jobs, and then you got all this other societal stress on top of that. Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, I feel like we live in a society in which it's like you said it, we are bombarded. We're bombarded by information. And a lot of the time, that information is negative information through the news, through comparison in social media. We're always comparing ourselves to others. And that can be very stressful because you see all of the people that have the things that you don't have, the body that you don't have, the money that you don't have. And it creates that sense of lack, that sense of insecurity that can be very triggering on your stress and your anxiety. And like you said, on top of that, you have your own issues. You have to deal with life. You have to go to work. You have to deal with family issues. You can get sick. Your family members can get sick. So I think it's important also to create a, some sort of barrier, or at least measure yourself on how you're going to relate to those kinds of information, of negative information. I've been trying to segment my time on social media, and it's been extremely hard because it's so addictive to 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 relate to social media in a healthy way. It's very hard, and I've been trying to focus on, like we said before, on being grateful, because I think stress has a lot to do with perspective, the way we see things. So when you start your day, so whenever I journal, I try to also write down the things that I'm grateful for. Small things like the fact that I'm healthy, my family's healthy, I have a roof on top of my head. I have food in my fridge. I have water, clean water available. I have clothes. I have people that love me. I have a job that I love. So whenever you focus on that, you realize, wow, the things that used to bother me or made me uncomfortable, made me anxious, are really not that big. So I don't want to give my attention, my energy to that. I want to focus on that feeling of gratitude, and that's how I want to set up the rest of my day. The thing is, it requires, like everything else, like training, like nutrition, it requires discipline, it requires consistency. It's an everyday work. There's I want to share this with you because there's a motivational speaker that I absolutely love. His name is Les Brown, and Les says that life is a fight for territory. And whenever we stop fighting for the things that we want in life, the things that we don't want automatically take place. So whenever we stop fighting for our health, whenever we stop fighting for the quality of life that we want to live, for whenever we stop fighting for being grateful, the opposite, we don't have to do anything. The opposite immediately take place. So it's an everyday work.
I think you bring up an important point that it's not one and done. It's not like you went through your, it was 21 days of meditation, right?
Yes,
It's not like you did that and then, okay, I'm better now and I never have to meditate again. I never have to journal again. It is this constant process. I know gratitude is, that's a huge one for me. And I find I have to speak out loud, as odd as that sounds. That's
I
what
love it.
works for me.
No, I
And
think
I'm
that's
usually
wonderful.
driving in the car and I'm like, saying a prayer and thank you for, and I just go through every single thing from my kids to our home to the car to the, I mean, I just go and my mood lifts like immediately. Like I cannot be in a negative mood when I'm in a state of gratitude. So it's really powerful. Now, working with clients, you're using these methods. Have you had a client, and I know we can't name names, but a client that comes to mind that's just really you think of their transformation and it's just this big wow, and being a part of that transformation? Is there anyone that comes to your mind?
Yes, definitely. Like you said, I don't want to name her because I don't want to make her feel uncomfortable. But there's this client that I really appreciate. Is she's a woman. She's over 40, and she used to have a very stressful life. She was filled with anxiety, even though she had a pretty good overall socioeconomical situation. um, she was big on overthinking, and she never really took care of her physical health through training or nutrition. So we met, we had a consultation, and we started talking. And she tells me that she wants to change her physical and mental health, but she didn't have the answer. She didn't know which steps to take to get to that new place. So I talked to her into starting to train with me, and we started doing a very mindful training, starting easy, as simple as possible. Just get her into the gym and taking the right steps in the right direction. And I also suggested for her to do a very light meditation consistently, but a very light meditation. And after that, she came to a couple of, I did some meditation workshops here in Maui, and she attended the 3 workshops that I did, and that really helped her out as well. But what happened is taking those initial baby steps led into bigger steps. So she started training twice a week, and she started to feel better, which led into, you know what, if I'm gonna start training, I should really complement this with good nutrition. So I gave her some direction in that side, but then she took her own path through nutrition. But she did amazing. She almost completely stopped drinking. I'm not against drinking completely, but I do think you should measure yourself, and you should be very cautious. But she reduced considerably her drinking. She started eating better. She started training. She started feeling stronger. She started to develop muscles. through the meditations, she was able to be more present. Through the training, she was able to be more present. And those things started to pay off throughout her daily life. She felt like she had more energy available to give to her family, to her kids, to her husband, and to her business, which she's a very successful businesswoman, and she felt like that was she didn't have the energy to do everything. And now, through investing that time on her training, on her nutrition, she lost 30 pounds.
Wow.
She's become so in 30 pounds in 6 months. She's become so much strong that it's unbelievable to me. I remember we started doing deadlift with a 15-pound kettlebell, 20-pound kettlebell, and now she's lifting over 150 pounds on her sumo deadlift like it's nothing, and she's enjoying it. And it didn't happen from one day to the other. It was all about taking those baby steps every single day and always moving forward and always trying to be 1% better every single day. And recently she sent me a text thanking me for inspiring her to do that, and it just made me cry. It was very fulfilling to me know that I can make a difference in someone else's life like I'm trying to do with my own. So that was one of the greatest experiences ever, and I want to have as many as possible of those.
Oh, that's so powerful. Not just the weight loss, because I mean, I don't want to say the least of it, because obviously health is important, but just that mental change and being able to, cut back on the drinking, eliminate some of that. Um, it's affected her business. She's stronger, physically stronger. So many benefits just from getting that mindfulness into our lives. Now, you have, Tadio, a program that I would love for you to talk about with the listeners. Tell them a little bit about your company, your program, and how they can work with you.
So I created the Self Care Body, which is my own company that provides for fitness coaching and stress management coaching. And I've created this 8-week program that's called Lean, Strong, and Calm. And the name says everything that it is. It helps people lose body fat, get stronger, develop muscle, and also reduce their stress and anxiety. So basically, what it entails is a training program that teaches you how to train mindfully and progressively to do it in a safe manner. Um, and it also includes a nutrition guide that sets you up in the right direction to complement with the training program that we provide. And lastly, we provide a meditation guide and a stress management ebook with all the information that you need to reduce stress and be able to not only increase and improve your quality of life through reducing that stress and anxiety, but also allowing your body to do the natural process of recovery that we need to lose weight and to gain muscle. So they all complement each other. The meditation guide, the training program, and the nutrition guide. So the idea is to take care of ourselves in a more holistic way, to be able to take care of our body and mind. Um, so that's starting on the 8th of January, and it's going to be an 8-week program, and it's fantastic, and I'm incredibly excited to start, and hopefully a lot of people will join, and I can help everyone to change their quality of life and of course, their physical appearance as well, because I know that's very important for many others, which it's also directed towards that goal.
Well, you're the perfect guy to do this, and I love that you can have the empathy, because sometimes people are talking about stress and they they can't, maybe they really haven't experienced what you've experienced, and so you have um, that personal story that is so powerful. So, Tadio, I'm so happy you were able to come on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, sharing your transformation. And as we wrap up, now this program, they don't have to work with you in person. They can actually do this online. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
Everything is done
perfect.
online. Everything that we provide is done online. You don't have to be here on Maui. It can be done from any part of the world. All the information is going to be online. The program is going to be done through an app called Trainerize, and all the nutrition and the meditation guides are going to be online. So,
Oh,
and
that's
you'll have all
perfect.
the guidance necessary from me to be able to accomplish your goals.
Oh, that's perfect. I'll be sure to share all this in the show notes. And where can the listeners and viewers get a hold of you, reach you, follow you, and work with you? What is the best way?
So my website is called theselfcarebody.com, and my social media, I have two Instagram accounts. One is my personal coaching Instagram account, which is Tadeo Luque Coach altogether, and then my company's account is called the Self Care Body. So through social media, there you're gonna have all of my contact information and all or on my website. So you can reach out through there.
Wonderful. So, to the listeners, be sure you check all this out. It is in the show notes. I'll make sure all the links are there. Get a hold of Tadio. Follow him on Instagram. He gives a lot of great tips on how to manage stress and how this will fit into your exercise and training plan as well. And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.